All right, everybody, welcome back. Let's continue on with this comparison. Truthfully, what I find most annoying about these comparisons is usually just a couple of guys who sit down, they play a couple of different guitars, and then you never really get a good look at them. You don't get like a 365 degree sort of, what's the guitar? I want to know more than just how it sounds clean and dirty. I want a really good look at guitars. So yesterday we looked at something that in the comments section of the video seems to be up for some debate, and that's the lacquer checking. So Richard's confirmed that this guitar, I think he said it was 2007 anyway, check the comment section of the last video. I think he said it was 2007. Which falls in line with kind of what I worked out about this numbering system that they're using for the custom shop numbers. So it was 74320. So yeah, I think this is a 2007 guitar, so it's less than 10 years old. It's about 8 years old. So the lacquer checking on the back, if I'm honest, I think that's either because it's been played an awful... It would either be because it's been played an awful lot or because it's been sat in a case for a really long time. And I think because the lacquer checking is really pronounced on the back end of the guitar, and especially up around here in the bottom half of it, is really bad. But up here, not so bad. Probably because it wasn't touching the case. So I expect moisture in the case was just where this was actually touching the fabric in the case. That's why I don't personally keep guitars in cases. Anytime I go to buy a used guitar and I hear and I read, oh, it's been stored in a case forever, I stay away from those guitars. I stay away from guitars that have been stored in cases. A guitar that's been stored in a case probably hasn't been played, probably is not being stored in a particularly good location, and is susceptible to this sort of shit. So as far as I'm concerned, I never store guitars in cases. I'm either playing them and they're sat on a stand or they're sold. If a guitar's sitting in a case, for me personally, it doesn't belong here in my home. It's going to be sold or gone to somebody who's going to play it. If it's sat out on a stand and being played most every day and being looked after, that's why I had to go down to so few guitars. I couldn't keep up with maintaining so many guitars. I can only maintain personally a couple of 3 guitars. Because that's the other reality of what I've come to learn as somebody who's teaching themselves to repair guitars is stuff that you have to stay on top of. There's things about maintaining your guitars regularly when you change the strings and I look at and play my guitars every day, multiple times a day. I have the luxury of being at home, stay-home dad, but I'm not suggesting that, everyone who's got a full-time job has the amount of time to play and look after guitars that I have. And I probably go overboard with that, but this to me is evidence that this guitar hasn't been played. Right? When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, I guess this has just been really played. Maybe the guy sweat on it a lot, but no, that doesn't really line up with the... I would expect to see a lot more nonsense up here. If this was really due to playing, this would be really messed up too, and it's not. It's nearly perfect. The front of it's nearly perfect. And the back of the back of it, especially around the bottom, is where the big problems are. And I reckon that's because it's been sat in a case. I really do. I reckon this has been sat in a case for ages and ages and ages, and the guy probably took it out and went and paid to have a setup done on it. So, in terms of its playability, it's okay. I'm gonna clean it up for Richard, because the frets could be shined up a bit, and we could oil up this fretboard. Just a little bit of maintenance. Just gonna put a fresh set of strings on it for him. Now, forgive me, if it seemed like I was being overly biased against this guitar. I'm not. Don't get me wrong, folks. Would I like to own this guitar? Hell yes, I would. If money was no object to me, would I buy this, even in the condition that it's in? Yes, absolutely I would buy this. This is a very nice guitar. The comparison for me was, part of that comparison for me was just personal preference. right? This lacquer checking doesn't affect this guitar's ability to play and make music. Like, not at all. And do you think it devalues it one bit? No, not even a bit. Probably adds to its value. Right? So anything I said about this guitar, like, it's not going to devalue it. This guitar is going to sell all day long for $2,000 Canadian in the condition that it's in, which, frankly, overall is pretty good. I mean, yeah, the lacquer checking is pretty unfortunate, but shit, every Gibson I've ever seen has a little bit of lacquer checking, right? And like you say, tons of guys like that kind of, tons of guys like this look, right? This is not structurally going to damage your guitar. Like this, if you were going to keep this guitar, and I know he's not going to keep it because that's just, he doesn't keep guitars, he trades and sells them. But if you were going to keep this guitar, shit, you could keep this from getting any worse by just keeping this guitar outside of its case and breathing and playing every day and looking at it and, using it. If it's just sitting in its case, like under a bed or in a basement or someplace like that, it's just sitting there twisting in the wind. It's just getting destroyed as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Like, it's a hollow body, it's a semi-hollow body guitar. So, if you keep your home relatively, like, most, depending on where you live, but like most homes in the last 20 years have air conditioning systems and heating and air conditioning systems that have humidity control. So if you just keep your house at around 50%, it's like everything's good to go. It doesn't matter if you have the air conditioning going or the heat going. As long as you keep the humidity around 50%, that's like, I never have trouble with guitars. Like humidity-wise, never. If you're unfortunate enough not to live in a humidity-controlled house or apartment, I don't know what to tell you. Get yourself a decent humidifier. Not like these things that you put in your room at night to breathe better. Don't get one of those. That's like, you put salt in those to make those work, and that's no bueno. But just look after your instrument, really. If you just look after it, you should be able to avoid a lot of this bullshit, right? Like, a little polish every now and again, clean the shit off of it, like, just play it and feel it and touch it and smell it. I don't know what to tell you, man. I'm sure there are other better ways. Like, I'm no expert, but like, I've now personally owned well more than 100 guitars and probably touched 5 times as many. So I feel like I'm getting to a point where, I know a little bit about a little bit. But I just wanted to offer some other things that you never really see in side-by-side comparisons. And one of the biggest stark differences between this guitar and the other guitar is when you play it acoustically, it's just like night and day. And then you compare that to the red one, and it's just like nowhere near, right? This one has really good sustain. I spent the better part of yesterday afternoon just back and forth on these. Yeah, it's got a deeper, richer, fuller sound, but I don't know, does it decay faster? It seems to decay a little bit faster. Yeah, it kind of drops off sharply, like really just sort of goes strong, and then disappears. And then whereas this one is more even, I think. It tapers off more evenly. Yeah, slightly more evenly. Now, one of the other things. So I tuned these guitars yesterday. They've both just been sat in a stand overnight. Are they in tune? Ooh, only slightly on the E. Perfect on the B. G, way out. Sort of expect that for any kind of Les Paul. G is way out. D, slightly out. A. Actually, I realize this would probably be slightly more interesting if you actually looking at the tuner. So sorry about that. I'll show you with the Gibson. Okay, so low E, slightly out. Now you'll notice too, when you tune up a guitar, you should run through it again, because as you make adjustments all the way around, other stuff is likely to come out of alignment. So I usually go a couple, 3 times around. So you see there, the E is still slightly out. Oh, now the B's come out. Now the G's out. D's okay. A's okay. And ooh, that G is shaky, eh? Okay, that's good enough. Okay, so same thing, E is slightly out. Rock solid on the B. Ooh, G is only slightly out. D is good. A is slightly out. Hey, score 1 for the Gibson. Score 1 for the Gibson. Okay, so I'm going to play both of these again, but this time I'm going to play them so that you can see which is which. And I'm not going to reveal which is which from the last video yet. I'm going to let you decide whether you were right or wrong, basically. So here's the Gibson. Okay, so that's the bridge pickup. Here's the neck pickup. So here's the Epiphone back. Okay, so there's our bridge pickup, neck pickup. Okay, so I won't even play the coil taps. I'm just going to compare them like for like, but they do coil taps on this one, which that one doesn't do. Now, I realize some of you wanted to hear it without the tremolo effect. I just thought the tremolo effect was a good way to sort of gauge its dynamic. I wanted that. Anyway, but here it is, again without the tremolo. So that's our bridge pickup. Here's our neck pickup. Okay. Okay. personally, if I was going to, like, if I had to choose one or the other, if you were giving me one, well, I'd want this one. It's only slightly better in my mind. It's only slightly better. It's only slightly more appealing tone-wise. It only slightly feels better to play just in terms of its neck profile. I really don't like the tall frets, but if traditionally that's what this sort of guitar would come with, and that's what players are expecting, I personally don't know. I don't have a clue. Like, is that traditionally, are these supposed to come with like really jumbo frets? I mean, they're just too tall for me. And the reason that some of you think it's out of tune is because that's the problem I have with these frets. As soon as I press a little bit too hard, the note comes out of tune. So anytime I'm fretting quickly, if you push down too hard, you have to have a really light touch to play these, and I don't play with a light touch. So personally, this type of guitar doesn't suit me, because I don't play with a really light touch just in terms of how I fret notes. I've been trying to, but I just find that with these tall frets that the balance is just, you have to be a little bit too precise to get that note to sound bang on. And that's why I personally don't like really tall frets, because as you push down on the string, it makes it hard to fret those notes so that they're accurate. But this one, obviously, I find really easy to play. I mean, is it the greatest sounding guitar? No, not really. Are either one of these the greatest sounding guitar? To me personally, no, not really. Neither one of these. If truth be told, if I went into a shop, would either one of these get attention for my money? No, not really. Probably not. I'd probably walk right by both these. So this one obviously clearly doesn't belong to me. It belongs to one of my good friends, Richard, and we're just going to clean this one up. I don't even know if I'm going to film that. It's really just going to polish up the frets. I might do a little fine tuning on this nut. The action at the nut seems a bit high for my liking. And that might cure some of these fretting problems, and I'll probably just oil up the fingerboard, but that's really hardly worth a video. Same thing with this. That's all this needs. This just needs some shining on the frets. Oh, there's some schmutz there I hadn't noticed. Anyway, yeah, so this one here just needs some shining on the frets, a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of the oil on the fingerboard just for some maintenance. Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this guitar. It doesn't need a lick. Because this is really nice. Like, it's a really nice guitar. If this is your style of guitar, like, you have this kind of money, right, and brand name is important to you, then yeah, you'd love this. You'd love this for sure. But I'm a poor guy, and as a poor guy who certainly would love to have all the money in the world to buy stuff like this, like, who are we kidding? If I had the money to buy one versus the other, would I buy the cheaper one? No, of course not. I'd buy this one. I think we all would, right? It's got the nice pearl inlays. Fuck, even beat up, this thing looks still way cooler than the Epiphone. The headstock is just way cooler. Gibson headstock for me is just, like, they got it right. You know what I mean? Like, every other guitar company tries to make something this cool looking, and Gibson just got it right the first time. I mean, that's just the coolest looking headstock. For me, period. Like, guitar headstocks, you know, I like that one the best, personally. And I don't know, just the Epiphone headstock lets the whole guitar down for me. Every Epiphone I've ever owned, just aesthetically speaking. I mean, I know they're nice guitars. I know it's a small thing to complain about a guitar over, but, you know, we all have our personal likes and dislikes, and I think that probably you'll find that I'm not the only one who thinks that. So, if you're on a budget, obviously, I mean, shit, like, there's just, comparing these, I think sort of the problem with comparing a $3,000 guitar versus a $500 guitar is that fellas who have the money to buy this would never buy this. this. They would snub their nose up at this. But fellas who can only afford one of these, you know, it got a bit indignant, and they try to tell you, oh, the Epiphone's just as good as the Gibson, and all that kind of stuff, and well, come on, that's bullshit. It's not. It's just not. It's a this is a mass-produced version of the real deal. And is the mass-produced version a good guitar? Yes, absolutely. Is it worth $550? Yes, absolutely. I think it's outstanding value. I think that they've made a clone as close as they can to the real thing, and they've gotten really close, right? I mean, they've gotten really, really close. I think a lot of these Epiphones are really close, but then once you get to a certain level of playing and a level of, being concerned with small little nitpickety things that we become concerned with as guitar players, like tone, then you're going to kind of have to migrate to something like this, right? Or you're going to have to hot rod this one. You're going to have to put better pickups in it or something to make it as good as how this other one comes out of the factory. Now, do I think Gibson should be charging as much money as they charge for these things? No, this is fucking crazy. I think charging, what do these things go for brand new? This is probably nearly $3,000 brand new. I think $2,700 was the last I saw. $2,800 brand new, used about $2,000. But still, that's the cost of a used car. So you can have a car or a guitar. And I suppose once you get to a certain level of income, it doesn't matter, right? And I think that's what Gibson's counting on, is that when you get to a certain level of income, the people will pay this money. And obviously they know, they're not slowing down. Nobody's slowing down buying Gibsons. They're not, these things sell themselves. That's it. They just sell themselves. And you get a lot of people complaining about certain years, and this year was better than that year, and the new maple boards, and this and that and the other. But you know what? All the slight modifications that they make to these things year after year after year, and the reissues, and the this and the that and the other, I can tell you with some degree of certainty, at least in the used market, the minute you put up a used Gibson of any sort, if it says Gibson on the headstock and you're not asking stupid money for it, they sell instantly. They're like Apple products, okay? If you've ever sold a used Apple product of any sort, you put it up online, you're not asking stupid money for it, you're asking reasonable money for it, which is usually not far off the retail cost already. It'll get sold right away. Every Gibson I've ever owned, if I put it up at the right used price, sold immediately. Immediately. I'm talking within 20 minutes immediately. Right? If you're not one of these assholes who puts this thing up, if you put this up at $2,500, it'll just sit and sit and sit and sit and sit and sit online forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Right? Because it's too close to retail. But if you put this up at $1,900 and some change, well, I guarantee you that'll sell right away. At least here it will, right? It'll sell that day. With a hard case and some papers, it looks pretty flash, it plays great, it sounds awesome. So I'm going to end my comparison there by saying essentially, I think comparison videos do a disservice because these two guitars don't appeal to the same person. I think they don't. At least not people who are actually buying them, right? Yes, this appeals to everybody. That appeals to everybody, but not everybody can have that, right? Just like Ferrari appeals to everybody, not everybody can own a Ferrari. But just about everybody can own one of these. And is that a pretty goddamn close approximate facsimile? I would say for my money. Just so you know, everybody, Guitar A, the one most of you liked,